message in a bottle. You know, if you're anything like me, when you hear that, you kind of visualize, you know, the typical, you know, shipwreck castaway somewhere on a deserted island, and you know, in order to get rescued, you know, they write a message and they stuff it in a bottle, and they you know, they throw it out in the vastness of the ocean with the hopes that at some point in time someone's going to get that bottle and rescue them. And I kind of look at that and I kind of see that as, you know, in my idea of what Forrest Fenn has done with the thrill of the chase. And, you know, let me kind of explain that. So we all kind of know the story, if you've been involved in this long enough, that in 1988, when he was diagnosed with cancer, he was, you know, in the process of selling his gallery there in Santa Fe, and he had Ralph Lauren come in there and wanted to buy something that Forrest didn't want to sell, and you know, Ralph said, well, you can't take it with you when you go. And Forrest Fenn said, well, then I'm just not going. You know, and at that time, you know, obviously Ralph Lauren was completely ignorant that Forrest Fenn had been diagnosed with terminal cancer. And Forrest Fenn knew, you know, really felt that he was going to die. You know, he thought to himself, well, why can't I take it with me when I go? You know, why do I have to live by everybody else's rules? So he comes up with this wonderful idea to take this, you know, 12th century lockbox that he purchased, fill it up with all these things, and take it with him out in the mountains somewhere, and dare everybody to come find him. You know, it was this great plan, but of course he ruined it by recovering from cancer. And, you know, but he thought to himself, why can't I still do this? You know, why can't I still make this plan happen? And, you know, I really kind of believe that as the years, you know, progressed from the time that he recovered from cancer to the time that he hid the treasure chest, his whole, you know, reasoning for doing the thrill of the chase kind of transformed, you know, over time. And it kind of transformed from the idea of a man who was just going to, you know, bunk the world's rules and take it with him, to that of one who teaches a child labors with God in his workshop. You know, he wanted to give back. You know, he wanted to get people off their texting machines. He wanted to get people back out in the woods. You know, it was about giving something back and passing on that which he loved, which is the thrill of the chase. And so we all kind of know a little bit about the story of Eric Sloane, you know, the supposed story of, you know, Eric Sloane, you know, saying that he was going to write a book titled 80 and then die. You know, and he talks about this in the one of the original chapters of his book. And I think that you know, that whole thing was kind of weighing on Forrest as he's getting older, and he's getting to age almost 80, that you know, I gotta put my plan in place, because here I've got this treasure chest, I've got this, you know, this poem that I've written. It's going to lead, you know, to where I want to hide this treasure, and it's just sitting here in my vault. And as I'm getting older, I don't just want to die like Eric Sloane and completely, you know, ruin this plan. I've been given a second chance to make it happen, so I've got to make this happen. So here if you read the you know, the one chapter that's just prior to the poem in the book, it says, you know, I knew exactly where I wanted to hide the treasure chest, you know, so it would be difficult, but not impossible to find. You know, it's somewhere in the mountains north of Santa Fe. George Burns was 100 years old when they asked him how his health was, and he said, you know, my health is fine, it's my age that's killing me. So, much like Eric Sloane, at age almost 80, I figured it was time to act. So I wrote a poem containing 9 clues that, if followed precisely, will lead to the end of my rainbow and the treasure. So he's kind of admitting to the fact that, you know, he was realizing that he was getting older, and he was almost, you know, 80, and he didn't just want to, you know, die in his sleep or die waiting on a street corner or in an accident or something. That he had to make this, he had to put this plan into action. So I believe, you know, he goes out there and we all, I think most of us believe that it was somewhere, you know, in the summer of 2010, he goes out and does the physical action of hiding the treasure chest. So he goes out there and he hides the treasure chest, and he comes back, and he's got the poem now. He's got the treasure chest hidden, and he's got this poem. And how's he going to put this plan into place? How is he going to get this poem out there to the world? Is he simply going to, rely on, leaving in his nightstand with a note that says, "Here, Peggy, good luck"? How's he going to get that out there? Was he going to use Douglas Preston? Was he going to have Douglas do all this? He asked Douglas to write The Thrill of the Chase, all this other stuff. Well, here's what I'm getting to with that. In The Thrill of the Chase, he admits to an important literature that J.D. Salinger dies. And here is this, man who's a well-acclaimed author, and everybody knows about him, but Forrest Fenn had never heard of him. It's a guy that wrote a bunch of books and kept them in a vault, and Forrest Fenn says, "Sounds like my kind of guy," and Barbara Walters speaks so highly of him and all this other stuff, and he's like, "Never heard of this guy. Who is he? I never heard of him." So what does he do? He goes out and buys Catcher in the Rye, and he starts reading it, and he's like, this is kind of like my story, and while I think a lot of people they go into this rabbit hole about J.D. Salinger and everything, and Halden Caulfield, and I can get into all that. I think the real takeaway from him mentioning that is that he says, if this is a good book, I could do that. I think that's the real takeaway from mentioning J.D. Salinger and The Catcher in the Rye, is that Forrest Fenn admits that if this is a good book, that I can do that. And at the same time, or somewhere around there, he also states that, one of the reasons for writing The Thrill of the Chase is that, his daughters, Kelly and Zoe, didn't know who Clark Gable was. They didn't know who he was. And here Clark Gable, probably to Forrest Fenn, was this great movie icon, this great, actor, and was just shocked that his daughters didn't know who Clark Gable was, much like Forrest didn't know who J.D. Salinger was. So he admits to going, well, I don't want people to not know who I was. I want them to know a little bit about me and Peggy and my father and mother and my brother and sister and our family and how we were raised. And that my grandmother used to look out her window and watching the Comanche and Kiowa Indians chase chickens around their barnyard. They wanted his family to know all that stuff. So now, if J.D. Salinger's book is that simple enough that he can do that, and he wants his family to know a little bit about himself, he kind of melds those two things together and decides to write The Thrill of the Chase. But now, he potentially sees the opportunity that the book, The Thrill of the Chase, can also be that vessel that the message is contained within. So he writes The Thrill of the Chase, and what does he do with it? He self-publishes it, and he gives that initial copy, or initial print, run, to the Collected Works bookstore in Santa Fe, New Mexico, which we all know is a pretty obscure bookstore. So now he has the vessel, and the poem is that message inside that bottle, and he is kind of theoretically cast that book out into the vastness of the ocean, much like a castaway on a deserted island does, in the hopes that one of us will eventually understand the message and find the treasure. Much like someone would be walking along a beach at some point in time and find that message in the bottle. I love the imagery and the thought of that. And again, like I told you, I don't think this is something that is going to help you, find the treasure or solve a clue for you or anything like that. But it's definitely an interesting theory to think about, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it and get your feedback, and I hope you enjoy it and it's brought something to you. So good luck to you all out there, and catch you on the flip side.